Hi guys, how are you? This is Lois. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're well and safe wherever you are. Today, where are my international students? You guys who wants to come to Canada to study, or rather who has a Canadian study visa, or who is in the process of processing their visa or entering Canada. You know, it's early August. Come on, you know, a lot of schools are starting in September, and this is a season of a lot of international students entering Canada. So I just want to make sure that you're well prepared before you arrive. So this video is going to talk about study permits and how you should prepare to arrive Canada. Okay, so call on your friends, call on your relatives, parents, share this with your children who are coming to Canada. Guys, share this with your spouses or your loved ones, your siblings who are coming to Canada, your friends, so that they are well prepared when entering Canada to study. So study permits only. Okay, this is not about everybody else. Today I want to talk to international students. So guys, have you subscribed to this channel? If you have, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. If you haven't, please consider doing so, or just like and share this video with someone who can benefit. I really appreciate. Also, maybe you want to turn on that notification tab just so that you don't miss out on our next videos. At times I do these videos when I get time. At times it's 2-3 weeks before I can get time to do so. Just understand, but I try to update you guys as much as I can. So I am a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. Yes, I am Lois Gidiga, and I'm an RCIC who is also a representative at the tribunal, at the Immigration Refugee Tribunal. So I am RCIC IRB, and I am based in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I do not have a physical office. People, please just understand that. The other day, someone figured where I lived and they knocked on my door. I'm like, so please, as much as I would love to meet you, just don't show up in my house, okay? All right, guys. Yeah, so I work online. And I meet people from all over the world. It doesn't matter where you are. Zoom is here, Teams is here, all those other platforms. So I'm happy to meet, and I've met thousands and thousands of people from all countries. Okay, I mean all countries. So feel free, should you ever need my services, go on my website www.milelaimmigrationservices.ca and book yourself a consultation. Summer times are quite busy, so you want to book a consultation in advance. Some people are waiting 2 weeks before they can meet with me. I apologize on that, but please, if you're planning on booking a consultation, always give yourself some lead time. There are people who are like, yeah, can I meet you today, honey? At times it's not possible. People have been waiting to meet with me 3-4 days, 5 days. So please book a consultation in good time. Unless it's an emergency, feel free, send me an email if it's an emergency, and I see whether I can accommodate you. If I can't accommodate, unfortunately, that's all that I can do, but I'll always try and see what can be done. Okay guys, now international students who are coming to Canada, you have done everything. You applied for school, congratulations, you have your study visa, and now you need to come here. You need to know pre-arrival, make sure you do some research on your destination. Okay, no brainer. Where are you? Of course, I believe you know the city you're coming to and the school that you're coming to. Familiarize yourself with the Canadian weather. Come on, I've done so many videos on that. Even provinces, employability, stuff like that. Those are things you should have taken into consideration when you were applying for school. Not now when you're arriving in Canada. You're like, oh my God, what are the chances of getting a job? Poor planning, okay? Consider those things before you apply for your school, so that you don't get here and then you're surprised. Okay, I do offer consultation sessions for students aspiring to come to Canada. Again, book a consultation. I'll guide you on the kind of courses, the kind of schools. We will look at your future employability and immigration dreams and goals for us to determine the right province, the right school, and the right course. Okay, so those are things you did a long time ago. So here you are. Okay, now you already know where you're coming. You need to prepare yourself to meet the visa officers, because getting that study visa with you right now, you have a study visa on your passport, or if you didn't require a study visa, you have an ETA, or you also have your visitor visa. If you had a visitor visa, they didn't necessarily change that for you. So whatever visa that is bringing you here, you have that on your passport. You have your identification documents, please don't forget those. You have your school documents, your admission and all that, and you have your port of entry introduction letter. Okay, that is what you have. When you land in Canada, the visa officers at the port of entry, whichever port of entry, those are the guys who will process for you a study permit. Okay, and a study permit doesn't go on your passport. It's a sheet of paper that, you know, is separate from your visa. A visa is the one that allows you to enter Canada. A study permit allows you to study in Canada and work while you study. Of course, there could be conditions, because some study visas are rather permits, as in they have conditions on even maybe the kind of work that you can do if you're allowed, and some of them may say that you're also not allowed to work. So make sure you understand the conditions on your study permit. So before you arrive, of course, as I said, go through the pre-departure of your country and arrival tips. I've done those videos. I'm going to attach them on the description part of this video just so that you can refresh. Okay, now, who will you be meeting in Canada? You'll meet CBSA, that is the Canada Border Services agents, and an immigration officer. Okay, two different bodies. There's CBSA and then there's immigration. Those are the people that you will meet upon entry. The first question, I know a lot of people ask me, even my clients, like, Lois, how soon can I enter Canada after I get a visa? And you know what? Like, I have students who, like today, we already have so many visas for January. Do you want to start traveling to Canada in January? For January, like you're coming to school in January, is this the right time to come? When should you enter Canada? I always recommend that you plan coming to Canada the last 1 month before your classes start, like the earliest. Why? Because while there is no stipulated time as to when you can arrive, actually CBSA say arrive as early as possible, just so that you avoid the rush hours. And the rush hours of travel are, you know, like late August, early September and early January, because those are the most popular times for international students. While there isn't that limit as to when you can come to Canada, just give yourself reasonable time to come and settle before you go to school. Of course, you don't want to arrive in class today, in Canada today, and your classes are starting tomorrow. You haven't figured out even how to get to your destination, where to stay, you know, all those things. So you want to give yourself reasonable time. So that's up to you. Why you do not want to come too early is because you can't work until you start your studies. So if you're just coming too early, unless you're coming to stay with relatives while you wait to join school, if you don't have any relatives and you don't have things to do, then I would say don't come here too early. Otherwise, even like, how will you convince a visa officer at the port of entry? Oh yeah, it's August, my classes are starting in January. What will you be doing? And you convince them that actually you won't be working. So you have to be smart. Some of these things I say, you know what, majority of the immigration things, especially port of entry, it's common sense. Ask yourself, do you raise flags by showing up 6 months before your classes start? And how well can you justify that? I said, if you have relatives, you can say, yes, I'm coming to stay with my relatives before school start. Otherwise, have a reasonable justification as to what you'll be doing in Canada. Okay, so thing is, you can't work until you start school full time. Otherwise, you will you'll be in contravention of your conditions. You do not want to go against your immigration conditions and your obligations in Canada as an international student. If you want to get postgraduate work permit, and if you do not want to be found to be inadmissible later or get into any trouble. Okay, believe me, you don't want trouble. Okay, now once now you come to the port of entry, you are arriving. Okay, you are arriving. What do you bring? I said bring all your identification documents. Bring your passport, of course. So passport is your travel document, of course, with the endorsed visa. Have your letter of introduction, letter that you received. Have your letter of acceptance, that is your LOA. Have any documents that could have been requested of you by immigration. You know, there are some people who did medicals and there were some conditions on their medicals. So make sure you meet those conditions, and any document you are asked to fill before you arrive, make sure you meet all those, okay? Any reference letter that was requested to you, make sure that you have that. I would say if you don't need a visa, make sure that you have your ETA or your valid visa, and then make sure that you have enough money that you can show you will use for your studies here. I know you showed that money while you are applying, and they're not necessarily going to ask you to produce bank statements, but if they feel like they want to ask you, a visa officer can do anything they feel like. So if they feel like asking you to demonstrate, please make sure that you can always maybe log in or have those bank statements printed somewhere, and you can show that you still have the money to support yourself in Canada. So also make sure all your identification documents, all those documents should be in your carry-on bag, not in your checked bag. Carry on, my friend. Anything that you're going to use or that you can refer to, have it in your carry-on bag. These days, Canada doesn't really care about vaccinations. I know US and other countries could care, but they really don't care about vaccinations, especially for COVID. Okay, make sure you so all those are things that you use to show your eligibility. My dear, you still have to be admissible. Yes, admissible. Remember, admissible, you are answering questions about your criminality. Have you ever been arrested? Have you been charged? All those blah, blah, blah. Are you in good health? Have you ever had all those lists of diseases that they ask about there? They still apply. So make sure you are in good health. Okay? That's, make sure you're, you know, if you arrive sick, looking sick, they can return you. Okay? So arrive in good health. Arrive with no criminal history or any immigration related convictions. Okay, you still have to go through the examination, oral examination. Like, you still have to answer questions. You know, the fact that you have that visa doesn't mean that a visa officer doesn't have any rights. Those are the people who give you the ticket to say, oh, you know what, welcome to Canada and enjoy your studies. Until that guy says that, you're not entering. So please be nice. Answer questions asked. Make sure you understand everything. Don't, you know what? Be smart. Again, don't volunteer information and answer questions nobody asked you. Okay? You're asked where you're going, you know, whatever questions they're asking you, which bank statements you used in your application, where you're going to be staying, what address you're staying in Canada. Have those answers. Know what is bringing you here. Okay, so make sure that you can convince the visa officer also that you'll go back home upon graduation. You know, a visa officer can ask you, so what will you do after you graduate? And you're like, oh, you know what, I'll look for employment in Canada. Well, it is legal to do that. You can't tell them that. Okay. You know, that has reminded me, you know, and sorry to bring this one here, but a guy the other day came to the airport on a visitor visa. I know we're not talking about visitor visa, but all these are temporary visas. And he was asked, oh yeah, you're coming here to visit. And then he says, the visa officer asks, I don't even know why they are doing that. You know what? So if we give you a job here, you know, there's a lot of job openings here at the airport. Do you want? We can give you a job. The guy said, oh yes, I would appreciate that. He went back on the same flight. Okay, so you have to tell them that your goal is to come to study in Canada. After graduation, you will still go back home. After you enter here, you feel free to look for employment, okay? And PR, double standards. I don't know why that happens. One thing I want you guys to note is that your medicals, remember you did medicals when you're applying for PR? your medicals must always be valid when you enter Canada. So medicals are valid for 12 months. That is 1 year from the day that you did it. So if you did your medicals over 1 year ago, make sure you go do other medicals, okay? So they must be valid on the date that you enter Canada. So if your medicals are going to be expiring before you enter Canada, it's in your best interest to get another medical ASAP, my darling, okay? This applies even if your letter of admission is still valid. So validity of your LOA, validity of your medicals, two different things. Everything has to be valid. Okay? All right. Yeah. So I already told you, you have to prove to them that you go back home, like you have your ties that are compelling to go home. I know you included that in your application, but if a visa officer asks you, you have to say, oh, you know what? Yeah, I have a good life back home. I have A, B, C, D. I have a whole life going on, and I can't wait to graduate to go home. Anyway. My friend, no. Did I tell you to avoid rush hour? Yeah, avoid rush hour, avoid traveling late August and early September and early January. So I hope you already dealt with this while you're booking your flights. Another thing I tell students, please, if at all possible, land at a port of entry that is near your school, so that you are not commuting too much after you enter Canada, and you'll go through immigration in the first port of entry that you land in. So if, let's say, you're traveling to Calgary or British Columbia, Vancouver, or wherever, and you land in Eastern Canada, whether it's Ottawa or Toronto, you will go through immigration there, and then you will commute like a domestic flight from whichever port of entry, okay? So make sure that you have enough time, and I think I've addressed this in a previous video. Come here, have enough time to process your study permit at the first port of entry. Don't have those crazy connections of 1 hour, okay, my dear? Yeah, so again, know where you're residing. If you already have accommodation with your school, that is something that you should have taken care of a long time ago. If you didn't get accommodation, make sure that you've already figured whether you're going to be doing an STR, that is a short-term rental, or you're staying with someone until you can get yourself accommodation, okay? So, excuse me. Now, after you arrive in Canada, and now you want to go to school, of course, your goal is to study, so come and familiarize yourself with the school, with the area, figure out where you're living, know your address, figure out transportation and how you will commute to school, know the bus stops, whatever the bus hours. Plan your commute. You've already registered to your classes, so you know your schedule. By the time you're arriving in Canada, you should have your schedule. If you haven't registered, please always make sure that you're registering for classes. Otherwise, I know a lot of people who end up in Canada and they haven't registered, and they're like, Royce, you know what? I arrived, but I'm not going to school because I was late in registering. And I'm like, how did you do that? Okay, please, planning. Lack of planning is planning to fail. I keep saying that, okay? So plan your travel in good time. If you're working with someone, if you're working with people like us, we can always guide you in those steps before you come here to make sure that you're not surprising yourself. Once you're in Canada, you need to know, and especially for very young people, I see this with these 18, 20, 21-year-olds. I know, I understand you. You haven't done this. Maybe your parents are elderly. You didn't have anybody to guide you properly. But still, that is not an excuse. They say ignorance is no excuse, okay? So please make sure that you understand your obligations so that you don't come and stay out of school. Because if you stay out of school, you're not allowed to work. Remember, you can't work until you go to school. If you're out of school for over 150 days, you get out of status, my dear. You do not want to get to that. Anyway, I hope you've done that and now you're ready to enter Canada. One thing I want to tell you, immediately you enter Canada, there are things that you should act on ASAP, okay? Number one, make sure you have an address in Canada. Number 2, apply for SIN number, SIN, social insurance number. That is the number that will allow you to work in Canada. Without that, you can't work. So you will need that. You'll need the social insurance number, and you will need an address. Some provinces, you may need an ID, and I would say please get yourself an ID. A school ID works. If you don't have a school ID, you can also get a provincial ID or a driving license. You do not want to be carrying your passport around. Okay, if you lose that, that's the thing that has your visa. So you want to keep your documents safe. All right. So my friends, remember, you are eligible. That's where you got your study permit. You have to be admissible to enter Canada. Don't be deported. Prepare yourself. Come and enjoy this place. Be very smart. Remember your goal. Remember why you're here, and come and don't lose focus. I do not want to go through the lecture that I did another time, whereby I see a lot of international students. They arrive here and they get freedom. Oh my God. We are now away from our parents. There's booze and party life in Canada, and they forget that they came here to study. And 2 years down the road, all they can show are children and out of status and a lot of inadmissibilities and police reports and deportations. Please know what is bringing you here. Come with a plan, come with goals, come write your goal and say, I am graduating. And immediately you graduate, embark on your PR if that is your goal. Okay? Please don't do all that just to be deported or to get out of status, my dear. Okay? I wish you nothing but the best. Welcome to Canada, and please, 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 if you need any legal advice, if you need any help, head on to my website, www.mileleimmigrationservices.ca, and book that consultation.